Well, I started conducting research as an undergraduate. So I started my junior year of undergrad working with amphibians primarily. So my passion has always kind of been for working with aquatic things, amphibians, freshwater snails. And I've been doing research ever since.
I always knew I loved water and water quality. I grew up always having a fish net in hand with my brother. We would go around, puddles in the woods and look for frogs and salamanders. And so I really felt always this connection back to water quality and our aquatic ecosystem and what they are able to support.
I first started studying streams and rivers when I was a graduate student. I was working at the University of Texas trying to understand how rivers change over time, studying fluvial morphology. What excites me about fluvial morphology, and really what excites me about rivers and streams, is that they reflect what's happening in the water cycle, the climate cycle, as well as all of Earth's surface processes. Everything's coming together at this one nexus point, reflected in our streams. It reflects the history of what's happened previously, and it also can reflect what's happening currently.
When I was a kid, I spent my weekends in my grandfather's farmhouse. There was actually a stream that was going through the backyard, so I was playing with the sediment, looking the fish swimming in the pond, and I believe that being surrounded with the environment and having this experience provided me the inspiration to pursue environmental research.
I wanted to, and this still carries through to even now, so I wanted to be a video game tester. So a beta, that's what, and to this day, after we're done with this interview and I go home, I'm going to be playing video games. So that still is a thing I do. But no, so for me, science always came naturally to me, and I like working with my hands. I like seeing how things work. And really, all of us are just biological organic machines. And so I was just fascinated in biology class, like learning about how, our own systems work. And everybody, you ask any undergrad who's taken organic chemistry, how molecules go together, they hate it. Talk about the Krebs cycle, they hated it. I loved that. Well, if I asked former me, I probably wouldn't say that, but I do now. Like learning how all those systems work, and I think that's what kind of brought me here.
I started working on the invasive mystery snail in fall 2018. I've always had an interest in invasive species, and I've done previous work with snails, and this species just happened to combine both interests for me. So right now we're working to figure out how many there are and kind of understand the extent of the population of invasive snails, invasive mystery snails in Pennsylvania. There's so much we don't know about this species. So right now we're just trying to figure out how many there are, and then we'll try to figure out a little bit more, like what parasites do they have, what other issues can they cause.
A lot of the research that I do is field-based research. So typically when we're looking for the ways in which these emerging contaminants, so pharmaceuticals, personal care products, and most recently PFAS, these polyfluoroalkyl substances, or these forever chemicals, move through the environment and the impacts that they're having once they reach there. So we typically will install monitoring equipment that includes hydrology and water quality sensors, as well as some sort of automated sampling machine that's able to pull samples during storm events and give us more frequent snapshots into what's going on in the stream. We're basically trying to gather data on how these contaminants move as a function of storm events or more baseline conditions in the stream, and that can give us a sense as to what their major sources are within the landscape. So are they coming from wastewater treatment plants? Are they coming from runoff from agricultural fields? Are they maybe coming from manure sources in the landscape? And so trying to monitor those dynamics gives us an idea of both how to most effectively treat the movement of these contaminants through our systems, as well as how to best keep them from getting there in the first place.
I love learning. I've always loved learning. And in this particular project, I was able to learn a lot from my colleagues and understand how it ties in to my interest in fluvial morphology. And by putting that all together, we were able to understand more about stream health and push the envelope of what our knowledge is currently about how streams change and respond to land cover development over time. This is so important because we need to understand the response in order to create solutions.
It started at the beginning of the COVID pandemic, and so we're monitoring wastewater routinely for the presence of not only SARS-CoV-2, but we've also added in other pathogens of interest such as influenza, norovirus, polio, HMPXV or monkeypox. As researchers, a lot of the time we forget that what we're seeing, finding, and reporting is all brand new knowledge that other folks didn't know. So in a lot of ways, every time I see something new, a new data point, or discover something new, that's the first time somebody's setting eyes on it. Even though it might be small and inconsequential to you at the time, there might be somebody 10 years, 50 years down the road that's the thing that they needed to kind of jumpstart whatever they're researching and looking at.
I'm studying Phragmites for a number of reasons. It's kind of ironic that when I was an undergraduate, the first plant I started studying was Phragmites and the smooth cordgrass Spartina alterniflora. That actually jump-started my career into wetland ecology, and little did I know now that when I started as an undergrad 20 some odd years ago, I'd be studying the same two plants, but from a completely different perspective. Phragmites is a great organism to study because it's actually known as an invasive model organism. So many people are studying Phragmites globally because it's a widely distributed plant. We can find it anywhere, but it's also providing fundamental insights as to how organisms are responding to climate change.
If you think that, that research is something you would be interested in, there's always a lab group that's willing to take in an undergraduate student and mentor them. Or if we have graduate students in our lab, they almost always need extra help to go into the field or something that they need help with in the lab. They only have two hands, right? So usually the first thing that I do when I talk to a student who's thinking about whether they might want to do research is ask them what kind of a category they think they might fit in. Like, do you think you might want to be in the field? Do you like being in the stream? Do you want that kind of hands-on experience? Maybe that's not what the student wants. Maybe they much more are coming from a chemistry perspective, and they just really want the lab experience. That's what's most exciting to them. And then sometimes people are really interested in using computers as the way that they would conduct their research. So depending on what answer that student gives me, I may be able to sort of figure out where they might find what it is that they're looking for in terms of a research experience. I've also had many conversations with students who have started off thinking that they like one of those three, or maybe even a totally different topic besides water, and then sort of find themselves, having this conversation with me, like, I tried this, in this professor's lab, and it really wasn't what I was looking for, but, somebody mentions the types of research that you do, and so I thought I would reach out and see if there were any experiences they could get in our lab. And so those are always really fun experiences too, because then you can sort of see the students grow in what they're excited about and discover themselves. So I always try to tell students that just as important as it is to know what you like, it's also just as equally informative to know what you don't like. So if you have an experience and you figure out, oh, this actually really wasn't for me, it really helps steer you in the right direction.